The galaxy was silent when the first signal came. A broken voice, weak and full of fear, carried across the stars. "This is Colony Vega 9, we are under attack. Please, anyone, help us." The signal cut in and out, heavy with static, but the terror in the voice was clear. For centuries, the Council of Worlds had watched over peace in the galaxy. Great powers, with ships that shined like suns and weapons that could tear moons apart, promised safety. Yet none of them could stop what was coming. The enemy was not like the usual raiders or pirates. They did not speak, they did not ask for surrender, they did not care for trade or prisoners. They arrived like shadows, silent and endless, moving from colony to colony. Where they passed, nothing lived. Cities burned. Oceans turned black. Even the strongest fleets fell in hours. The council gathered in the Grand Chamber, a room so large entire starships could float inside it. Leaders from every great race shouted at one another. The reptilian Trask blamed the insectoid hive. The hive accused the tall, crystal-skinned Valens. Fear filled the chamber, louder than reason. Everyone wanted safety. No one had a solution. At last, the oldest of them all, a scholar whose people had seen 10,000 star cycles, spoke with a trembling voice. "There is another species. Primitive, young, dangerous. Perhaps they can do what we cannot." The chamber went silent. Everyone knew who he meant. Humans. The word itself caused discomfort. Humans were strange among the stars. Not the most advanced. Not the most powerful. Their ships were smaller, their weapons simple compared to alien technology. But rumors spread through the galaxy. Whispers of how humans fought wars even when outnumbered. Stories of how they survived planets that would kill any other species. Tales of how they would fight with stones and fire if nothing else remained. Many believed humans were too chaotic, too wild, to be trusted with galactic matters. Others believed that chaos was exactly what the galaxy now needed. The decision was made. A messenger ship was sent to the Sol system, carrying the desperate plea of the galaxy. 4 days, the colony of Vega 9 fought and screamed for help. Their defenses broke piece by piece. Their skies turned red with fire. Families hid in tunnels, waiting for death. The Council's fleets, once proud, stood far away, unwilling to risk more losses. Only one hope remained, the humans. When the human fleet finally arrived, it was not what the aliens expected. The ships were smaller, darker, built more for function than beauty. Their engines roared like beasts. They did not shine with elegant colors or smooth designs. Instead, they looked scarred, as if built from war itself. The aliens who watched from orbit whispered among themselves. "These are our saviors. They look weak. They look broken." But the humans did not arrive with fear. Their voices on the comms were calm, sharp, and direct. "This is Terran Fleet Command. We received your distress call. Hold your position. We are here now." The alien commanders scoffed. Their advanced fleets had fallen. What could these primitive humans do? They expected the humans to beg for orders, to look to the Council for leadership. But the humans did not wait. Without hesitation, their dropships launched toward the burning planet. Rows of human soldiers sat inside, silent, weapons held tight. Their armor looked old, scratched, and heavy compared to the glowing shields of alien warriors. Yet their eyes were hard, steady. They were not afraid of the fire waiting below. On the ground, the colony survivors lifted their heads. Through smoke and ruin, they saw human soldiers marching forward. Not tall, not shining, not elegant. But their steps were firm, their faces unbroken. For the first time in weeks, hope flickered in alien eyes. High above, the alien council watched every move. They whispered again, "They are too small. They are too few. This is madness." But one of them, an old commander who had fought 1,000 battles, leaned forward and spoke words that chilled even his rivals. "No. This is humanity. You will see." As the first gunfire echoed across the burning fields, the galaxy held its breath. The rescue had begun. What came next would leave every world in shock. The battlefield of Vega 9 burned like a dying sun. The alien colony lay broken, towers reduced to ashes, ships scattered across the sky like torn paper. Smoke rose high into the atmosphere, and the smell of metal, blood, and fire mixed in the air. The aliens hiding in the ruins listened to the sound of the invaders, creatures that moved like shadows, tall, faceless, armored in black plates. They did not speak. They did not show mercy. They simply advanced, destroying everything in their path. The survivors had already given up. But then, a new sound came, one that did not belong to the enemy. The scream of engines. The roar of dropships cutting through the clouds. The humans had landed. From the wreckage, frightened alien eyes saw them step forward. Soldiers in heavy armor, dark helmets covering their faces, weapons clutched tight. They did not shine like alien warriors, nor did they wear banners or glowing shields. They looked ordinary, even weak compared to the alien legends. Yet the way they moved made the survivors freeze. Each step was sharp. Each glance was measured. They spread across the ruins like hunters entering a forest. They did not fear the shadows. They were looking for them. At first, the alien commanders who watched through orbit screens felt disappointment. "This is the help we waited for," one of them said. "Their weapons are old. Their armor looks heavy. They will fall in minutes." But on the ground, something else was happening. The invaders moved fast, their black forms rushing through smoke. A squad of human soldiers took position behind broken walls. They did not hesitate. They did not wait for orders from the council. They raised their rifles and opened fire. The sound was thunder. Bullets ripped through the air, not energy beams or plasma arcs, just pure kinetic force. The enemy staggered. Their armor cracked. A soldier threw a grenade, small and simple compared to alien devices. The blast shook the ruins, tearing 3 invaders apart. The survivors gasped. These primitive weapons worked. The humans shouted to each other, short and clear. "Cover left. Push forward. Grenade out." Their teamwork was sharp, perfect, like they had practiced this war 1,000 times. An alien child hiding under rubble peeked out and saw one of the humans smile during the firefight. A smile in the middle of blood and death. The child could not understand. Were these creatures insane? Or fearless? The battle spread across the ruins. Invader war beasts, tall as houses, charged at the humans. The aliens had seen these monsters tear apart crystal tanks and crush entire squads of soldiers. But the humans did not run. They planted explosives along the path. When the beast stepped forward, the ground exploded, its legs blown apart. It roared, collapsing into dust, and human soldiers climbed onto its back, firing until it stopped moving. The alien survivors whispered, unable to believe what they were seeing. For weeks they had begged the galaxy for help, and fleets of advanced ships had failed. But these humans, small, young, underestimated, were pushing the enemy back. The council commanders watching the screens grew silent. They had mocked the humans in secret, believing this battle would end in quick defeat. But now their eyes widened. The humans were not fighting like anyone else in the galaxy. They did not move with honor or elegance. They fought with rage, with grit, with laughter. They were not afraid to get close, to bleed, to kill with their bare hands if needed. One alien leader whispered, "This is not battle. This is madness." Another replied softly, "No. This is survival." The invaders, for the first time, pulled back. Their black forms shifted into the smoke, regrouping. They had never done this before. They had never feared anyone before. But now, against the humans, their advance slowed. A captured alien transmission revealed their fear. One invader commander spoke with a voice like broken glass, "These are not soldiers. These are predators." In the ruins, the survivors began to cheer quietly. A group of alien civilians crawled from hiding and reached the human lines. One survivor, trembling, asked in broken English, "You came to save us?" A human soldier, his armor smeared with blood and dirt, looked down and nodded. "That's why we're here. But stay back. It's not over yet." Above the battlefield, human warships moved into position. Their designs were not sleek like alien vessels. They looked heavy, patched, armed with old cannons and missile pods. Yet they fired with precision. Every shot hit. Every missile struck its target. Alien officers monitoring the battle were shocked at the human strategy. They were not throwing away lives. They were not blindly rushing. They were calculating every move, striking where it hurt most. Their tactics were brutal but effective. On the ground, one human squad became surrounded. 10 invaders closed in from every side. The aliens watching believed it was over. But then the humans formed a circle, backs against each other, rifles blazing in every direction. They shouted encouragement, they laughed, they fought with no sign of panic. One soldier, wounded and bleeding, pulled the pin on a grenade and smiled as he rushed into the enemy. The explosion tore through the attackers, leaving only silence. The squad survived, and the aliens who witnessed it felt their hearts shake. They had never seen such willingness to die for comrades. They had never seen soldiers fight with such madness. By the time night fell, the ruins of Vega 9 looked different. The enemy was not gone, but they were no longer unstoppable. Their advance was broken. Their fear was growing. The humans held the line. Fires burned in the distance, and the ground was littered with bodies of black-armored invaders. Human soldiers sat in the rubble, cleaning their weapons, sharing water, and preparing for the next wave. To them, it was just another day of war. But to the aliens watching, it was something else. It was the beginning of a legend. In the council chamber, silence hung heavy. The alien leaders looked at one another with unease. They had called the humans because they were desperate. Now they realized what they had unleashed. These creatures did not fight like others. They did not just fight to survive. They fought to dominate. They fought to win. The council members whispered their fears. What have we brought into our galaxy? On the battlefield, the humans waited for the next attack. Their commander's voice echoed through the comms, calm and sharp. We hold this ground. We do not break. We do not run. Show them what it means to fight humanity. The survivors huddled in the ruins, staring at their strange saviors. Small, mortal, fragile, yet more terrifying than the monsters that had burned their world. The first encounter had ended. The war was only beginning. The ruins of Vega 9 grew quiet after the first clash, but silence on a battlefield was never peace. Smoke drifted across the broken city, carrying the smell of burning metal and ash. Alien survivors huddled in basements and shattered tunnels, listening for the sound of footsteps in the dark. The invaders had pulled back, but no one believed they were gone. The council fleets that watched from orbit remained uncertain. They had seen humans fight, seen them hold ground when no one else could. But some leaders whispered that it was only luck, only surprise. They will fall when the enemy returns in full strength, said one counselor. Others remained silent, unsettled by what they had witnessed. Humans did not fight like soldiers. They fought like predators. On the ground, the humans wasted no time. They moved through the ruins, setting traps, placing explosives, digging defensive positions. They worked with speed, as if they had done this 100 times before. To them, war was not new. It was familiar. A group of alien civilians watched from hiding as humans repaired their weapons with scraps, building makeshift tools and turning rubble into cover. One young alien whispered, "Why do they not rest? The enemy is gone." An older survivor replied with a trembling voice, "They know the enemy will return. They are always preparing." When the attack came again, it was faster and harder than before. The black-armored invaders surged through the streets, more disciplined, more cautious. They had learned that humans were not weak prey. Yet once again, the humans met them head-on. This time, the aliens observing noticed something new. The humans did not just shoot and fight. They adapted. When the enemy brought heavy walkers, the humans split into small teams and vanished into alleys, striking from hidden angles. When the invaders used energy shields, humans responded with explosives buried under the ground. Every move of the enemy was answered with a new tactic. The aliens in orbit began to realize the truth. These creatures did not need advanced technology. Their strength was in something else: creativity, adaptability, and a refusal to surrender. An alien commander studying the battle muttered, "They are not the strongest. They are not the fastest. But they learn faster than any of us." On the battlefield, the humans fought with relentless determination. When one soldier fell, another picked up his weapon and carried on. When an enemy broke their lines, they closed ranks and pushed back harder. To the aliens watching, it seemed madness. To the humans, it was simple. No ground would be given, no ally would be abandoned. A group of trapped civilians were surrounded by the enemy in a ruined marketplace. The humans saw it, and without hesitation, 3 squads rushed forward. They fired, shouted, and threw smoke grenades into the air. In the confusion, they pulled the civilians to safety. One alien child cried, "Why would you risk so much for us?" A soldier crouched down, his face hidden behind a helmet, and answered in a calm voice, "Because no one gets left behind. Not while we're here." The words spread among the survivors like fire. No other race had fought this way. No other saviors had risked everything for strangers. The survivors began to look at the humans not just with hope, but with awe. Meanwhile, the enemy leaders grew restless. Reports came back that their troops were shaken, morale breaking. "The humans fight with no fear," one commander hissed. "They fight like they do not care for death." The Invader High Council debated retreat, but pride chained them. They had never been defeated before. To fall against these young creatures would be shame beyond repair. So they prepared to throw even more forces at Vega 9. Back in orbit, the Council of Allied Worlds argued as well. Some demanded that the humans be ordered to retreat, fearing the cost of unleashing them further. Others insisted that the humans were the only chance the galaxy had. A Valan general stood and spoke words that silenced the chamber. "Do you not see? These humans do not fight for us. They fight for each other. That is their power. That is why the enemy fears them." On the planet, human squads pushed deeper into enemy territory. They discovered a nest of invader breeding chambers hidden in the ruins. The creatures that hatched there were meant to overwhelm defenses by sheer numbers. The humans did not hesitate. They planted charges, set traps, and burned the chambers down. When the explosions shook the ground, alien survivors hiding nearby saw firelight dance on the humans' helmets. To them, the humans looked like demons in the smoke, bringing destruction with terrifying resolve. Yet when the fires died, those same soldiers offered food and water to the survivors. The aliens could not understand. How could beings so merciless in war be so kind after battle? The answer was simple. Humans carried both. They were saviors and destroyers, protectors and predators. That duality was their hidden strength. Days passed, and the war for Vega 9 dragged on. Each battle showed the same pattern. The enemy attacked, and the humans adapted. Each time they grew stronger, smarter, deadlier. The invaders tried new weapons, new tactics, but the humans always found a way to counter them. The Alien Council could no longer deny it. Humanity was not just holding the line. Humanity was winning. And that terrified them. Because if these creatures could defeat the greatest enemy the galaxy had ever known, then what would happen when their eyes turned elsewhere? One night, as the humans rested in a captured building, an alien survivor crept close. She looked at the sleeping soldiers, their armor set aside, their faces young and weary. They were not gods, not demons. They were fragile beings of flesh and blood. Yet when they rose, they became something unstoppable. She whispered to herself. They are like fire. Small, fragile, but if unleashed, they can burn the world. When the invaders launched their largest assault yet, sending waves of troops across the ruins, the humans stood ready. Their commander gave a short speech over the comms, his voice steady. They think we are weak. They think we are prey. Show them what it means to fight humanity. The humans roared in response, and when the enemy charged, the battle became chaos. Gunfire lit the night. Explosions shook the ground. The invaders fell in droves, their black armor broken, their bodies scattered across the ruins. In orbit, alien commanders watched in stunned silence. The humans were not just surviving. They were dominating. At last, the enemy pulled back again, leaving behind thousands of dead. For the first time in history, they had tasted fear. The galaxy held its breath. In the aftermath, the humans stood over the battlefield, dirty, bloodied, but unbroken. They looked ordinary. But every alien who saw them knew the truth. These were not ordinary beings. These were the hidden strength of the galaxy. They had been called for rescue. Instead, they had become the nightmare of their enemy. The ruins of Vega 9 were no longer silent. They were filled with whispers. Not just from the survivors hiding in the broken tunnels, but from across the stars. The story of humans had spread. The news traveled faster than light, carried through council networks, pirate channels, and even enemy spies. Everywhere, beings spoke the same words in hushed tones. The humans had come, and the enemy had fallen back. For the first time, the invaders had been stopped. For the first time, they had shown fear. In the hidden chambers of the enemy high command, the black-armored leaders debated with cold voices. They are not like the others, one hissed. The humans fight with no reason. They bleed and laugh. They are not prey. They are something else. Another slammed its clawed hand against the table. Then we will crush them. Bring more ships. More beasts. Show them their weakness. But deep inside, even they felt a flicker of doubt. Their kind had conquered worlds without resistance. They had drowned planets in fire. Yet against these young, fragile humans, their soldiers reported confusion, hesitation, even fear. Some whispered that the humans could not be broken. On Vega 9, alien survivors watched the humans with wide, uneasy eyes. The first days had been filled with hope, but now there was something else, something darker. They had seen the way humans fought. The way they threw themselves into danger. The way they killed with laughter still on their lips. One alien mother whispered to her child, "They saved us. But they are frightening." Another survivor said, "They are not soldiers. They are storms." The humans themselves did not notice the fear. They worked as they always did, repairing weapons, setting traps, preparing for the next battle. To them, it was routine. To the aliens, it was madness. They watched humans joke as they cleaned their rifles, or hum songs as they dragged enemy corpses into piles. They watched them share food in the ruins as if this nightmare was only another day in their strange lives. One night, as the fires burned in the distance, a Valen council officer approached the human commander. The officer was tall, his crystal skin glowing faintly under the ruined skies. "Your soldiers," he said carefully. "They fight without fear. They risk themselves without hesitation. Do you not value life?" The human commander looked at him with tired eyes. "We value life. That's why we fight like this. That's why we cannot stop. Because if we stop, there will be nothing left to value." The officer nodded, but unease grew in his chest. He had commanded fleets for centuries, but never had he seen soldiers like these. The humans were not fighting for honor. They were not fighting for council orders. They fought because it was in their nature, deep and unshakable. Across the galaxy, the enemy began to change tactics. They sent spies, drones, and captured prisoners to spread one message: fear the humans. In enemy prisons, captured soldiers begged not to be handed over to humanity. "Kill us," they cried, "but do not send us to them." The galaxy heard these words and shivered. The humans were not only rescuers now. They were becoming monsters in the stories told around campfires and across starships. Children whispered about them as nightmares. Soldiers from other races refused to stand near them for too long. Even allies looked at them with caution. They saved us, one alien commander admitted, but I do not know if they are saving us from the enemy, or preparing us for something worse. On Vega 9, the battles grew harder. The enemy sent wave after wave. But each time, the humans adapted. They built walls out of rubble. They planted bombs in the streets. They fought from rooftops, from sewers, from the shadows. The invaders who had once marched with endless confidence now hesitated at every corner. They began to retreat faster, their numbers thinning. For the first time in history, the enemy was losing morale. A captured transmission revealed the truth. An enemy officer's broken voice cracked through static. The humans do not fight for victory. They fight for destruction. They fight until nothing stands. How do you defeat a species that does not fear death? The Council of Worlds heard this message. Some cheered, saying the humans were the answer. Others argued, terrified, saying the humans were too dangerous to be unleashed any further. One elder spoke with trembling words, "We called them to rescue us. But if they win, who will rescue us from them?" The fear spread like fire. On Vega 9, civilians began to avoid the humans after battles. They still accepted their protection, their food, their aid, but they kept their distance. They could not erase the image of human soldiers covered in blood, smiling as they walked away from burning ruins. They could not forget the laughter they heard in the middle of slaughter. Yet when the next battle came, the same civilians prayed for the humans to save them again. That was the paradox. The galaxy feared them, but it needed them. The humans continued their war, blind to the whispers. To them, the only thing that mattered was survival. To them, fighting was not glory. It was duty. A group of human marines sat around a small fire one night, sharing stories. One said, "They think we're monsters." Another laughed. "Better monsters than slaves." Their commander listened, then spoke quietly. "Let them fear us. Fear keeps enemies away. Fear wins wars. But remember this, we fight to protect, not to conquer. Do not forget why we're here." His soldiers nodded, but the words did little to silence the fear spreading across the stars. In the next great battle, the humans launched their counterattack. Their ships moved like shadows through the void, their weapons roaring. They struck at the enemy with fury, tearing through ships, burning nests, destroying everything in their path. To the council fleets watching, it was both awe and horror. The humans were unstoppable. The humans were terrifying. When the battle ended, the enemy retreated once more, their fleet shattered. Survivors across Vega 9 cheered, but their voices trembled. They had been saved again. Yet as they looked at their saviors, marching through fire and smoke, they wondered if the price of this salvation was too high. In every corner of the galaxy, the same question began to grow. Did they call upon rescuers, or unleash something far worse? The answer would come soon, but for now, fear had spread. Fear of the enemy, yes. But even more, fear of the humans. The war for Vega 9 had reached its breaking point. The enemy had thrown army after army at the planet, and each time, the humans had stood their ground. Each time, the humans adapted, fought harder, and turned defeat into victory. But now, both sides prepared for something greater. The invaders gathered their full strength, fleets stretching across the sky, legions of beasts waiting to strike. They believed that overwhelming numbers would finally crush the humans. The council watched from orbit, terrified. If the humans fell, then no one else could stop the enemy. If the humans won, then the galaxy would never look at them the same way again. In the ruins, the human commander studied maps and holograms with calm eyes. His armor was scratched, his voice tired, but his resolve unbroken. "They're bringing everything," he said. "Good. That means they're desperate." Around him, his soldiers nodded, smiling through the dirt and blood on their faces. To them, this was not despair. This was the moment they lived for. When the attack came, it was like thunder. Enemy ships descended in waves, their fire turning the sky into a storm of flame. Black armored soldiers poured into the ruins, endless and merciless. For a moment, even the survivors watching thought the humans would break. But the humans did not run. They unleashed weapons no one else had dared to use. Missiles streaked across the sky, nuclear warheads glowing bright as they detonated. The blasts shook the planet, leveling enemy formations. Entire streets turned to fire. To the alien counselors watching, it was unthinkable. "They will destroy the colony itself," one shouted. But the human commander only said, "Better rubble than slavery." On the ground, human soldiers set traps with cold precision. They hacked enemy systems, turned their machines against them, and even sacrificed entire squads to block enemy paths. Every move was brutal. Every tactic was costly. Yet it worked. The enemy, with all their power, stumbled. They had never faced an opponent willing to burn everything just to win. One alien survivor watched as a squad of humans detonated charges under their own position, collapsing a building onto advancing invaders. The blast killed humans and enemies alike, but it stopped the enemy's advance. Tears filled the survivors' eyes. "They kill themselves for victory. They are mad." Another whispered, "No, they are dangerous because they choose to be." Across the battlefield, the enemy began to falter. Their commanders screamed orders, but their soldiers hesitated. Reports spread quickly. Humans were everywhere. Humans would not stop. Humans were death given form. Some invaders dropped their weapons and fled. For the first time in their history, the enemy tasted full defeat. In orbit, alien fleets watched with growing horror. The humans had turned the tide. Vega 9 was no longer a lost cause. It was becoming a graveyard for the enemy. Yet the cost was visible. Cities burned, the land shattered, the sky filled with ash. The humans had saved the colony, but at a price that no other species would have dared to pay. Counselors whispered among themselves. "They are not rescuers," one said. "They are destroyers." Another replied, "But they win." In the ruins, after days of fire and blood, the battle finally slowed. The enemy retreated, their fleets broken, their morale shattered. Human soldiers stood among the wreckage, exhausted but alive. Their commander gathered them together and spoke. His words were simple, but they carried across every comm channel. "We don't fight for glory. We don't fight for power. We fight because we refuse to kneel. Remember that. Remember why we are here." His voice reached not only his soldiers but also the survivors and the council fleets above. Aliens across the galaxy heard it, and they trembled. For in those words, they saw something terrifying: humanity's will could not be broken. The enemy high command reeled in shock. Their leaders slammed their fists against cold metal tables, demanding answers. How could such a young, primitive species defeat them? Their scouts whispered the truth: humans were not bound by fear. They did not surrender. They did not obey rules of war. They fought with fire in their hearts, and they carried death like a weapon. One enemy officer said quietly, "We can defeat machines. We can defeat armies. But how do you defeat a species that refuses to lose?" In the following days, the humans pushed outward. They hunted down the remaining invader nests, clearing streets and freeing survivors. Every corner of Vega 9 echoed with the sound of gunfire, then silence as the humans moved on. To the survivors, they were saviors. To the council, they were a nightmare in the making. Whispers spread faster than ever. Stories grew larger with each telling. Some said the humans fought like demons, others said they were angels of war. A merchant ship captain in a faraway system told his crew, "I heard the humans burned half a city to stop the enemy." Another replied, "Yes. And then they gave their food to the survivors." Tell me, what kind of beings can do both? Fear mixed with respect, awe with terror. The galaxy could not decide whether to thank the humans or fear them. But one thing was certain. The war had changed. The enemy had been unstoppable before. Now they were running. Now they had tasted fear. And all of it was because of humanity. In the council chamber, leaders argued endlessly. "We must use them," one shouted. "Let them finish the war." Another cried, "No, we must stop them before they become too powerful." But even as they debated, news arrived. The humans were not asking for permission. They were moving. They were preparing for the next strike. The humans did not wait for orders from the galaxy. They chose their own battles, their own path. The turning point had come, and humanity stood at its center. On Vega 9, the human commander looked at the stars, his face lit by the glow of burning ruins. His soldiers stood behind him, weary but unbroken. He whispered quietly, "This is only the beginning." And somewhere, across the galaxy, the enemy leaders shivered. For the first time, they realized they were not facing prey. They were facing predators who would never stop. Humanity had been called to rescue. Instead, they had become the storm. The galaxy held its breath as the enemy gathered their greatest force. The defeat on Vega 9 had humiliated them, and now they wanted revenge. From the void of space, their armadas emerged like black storms. Hundreds of warships, swarms of beasts, legions of soldiers, all converging on the broken world to erase the shame humans had carved into their history. In orbit, alien council fleets hovered in silence. They had been ordered not to interfere. They would watch and record. They would see if humanity could survive the impossible. On the ground, the human commander stood among his soldiers, staring at the dark sky filled with enemy ships. His voice was calm, steady. "They are coming with everything." "Good. That means this will be the last time." His soldiers smiled, some laughed, others tightened their grips on weapons. Fear did not rule them. They had lived with death so long that it had become their shadow. For them, this was just another battle, even if it was the greatest one of all. The attack began with fire. Enemy warships lit the sky with energy beams, their power tearing through the clouds, striking the ruined surface. Explosions shook the ground as buildings collapsed into dust. From above, thousands of dropships descended, pouring endless soldiers and war beasts into the ruins. It was a wave of destruction, a tide no army could hold back. But the humans were ready. Their fleet rose from the shadows of the planet, smaller, rougher, scarred from past battles, but alive. They launched missiles, fired cannons, and sent nuclear warheads streaking through the stars. Enemy ships burst into flames, their formations shattered by the fury of human fire. From the surface, human artillery roared. Rockets streaked upward, smashing dropships from the sky. Anti-air cannons fired until their barrels glowed red. Every street was trapped, every alley mined, every building turned into a fortress. When the enemy landed, they met not prey but predators waiting with teeth bared. The ground shook with the clash. Black armored soldiers charged through the ruins, their beasts roaring, but the humans met them with relentless fire. Machine guns thundered, grenades exploded, rifles cracked again and again. The humans moved like a single living weapon, covering each other, sacrificing, striking where it hurt most. One squad was pinned down, surrounded by waves of enemies. Their leader shouted, "Hold the line!" and the humans dug in, firing until their ammunition ran dry. When they could fire no more, they fought with knives and fists, refusing to surrender. When the battle seemed lost, reinforcements crashed through the walls with flamethrowers, burning the enemy into ash. The survivors cheered, then returned to fighting without pause. Above the battlefield, the council fleets whispered among themselves. They had never seen such fury. They had never seen a force so small tear into an enemy so vast. One commander said, "They are not winning because of strength. They are winning because they refuse to lose." The enemy pushed harder, sending massive war machines, towering like mountains, with cannons that could destroy entire city blocks. The humans did not falter. They swarmed the machines like ants, planting charges on legs, crawling inside openings, tearing them apart from within. When one machine collapsed, its fall shook the ground for miles. Human soldiers stood on its wreckage, raising their rifles with triumphant roars. The enemy commanders screamed in rage, throwing everything forward. Waves crashed, but each wave broke. Humans fought like creatures born for war. Bloodied, battered, dying, but never broken. Alien survivors hiding in tunnels listened to the battle above. Explosions shook the ground, but when human voices shouted orders, they felt hope. A child whispered to her mother, "The humans will win. They are monsters to the monsters." The mother held her close, unable to deny the truth. Hours passed, and the battle raged without end. The ruins were filled with smoke, ash, and fire. The dead lay scattered across streets, both human and enemy, but the fight did not stop. Even as the humans lost comrades, they grew more furious, more unstoppable. It was as if every death gave them strength. At last, the enemy fleet above began to waver. Human ships, though smaller, had torn their ranks apart. Nuclear detonations had left the void burning. The invader command ship tried to retreat, but human pilots pursued, willing to sacrifice themselves to finish the job. One squadron of fighters dove into the enemy flagship, missiles screaming, tearing the massive ship apart in a blinding explosion. In orbit, alien council fleets gasped. They had witnessed the impossible. Humanity had broken the unbreakable. On the ground, the last wave of enemy soldiers crashed against human defenses. They fought with desperation, but their fear was clear. Their attacks lacked strength. Their courage was gone. The humans, covered in dust and blood, rose from rubble and charged. They drove bayonets into armored chests, hurled grenades into packs of beasts, tore through the enemy until only silence remained. Then, at last, the battlefield grew quiet. The invaders were gone. The survivors ran or lay dead. The great enemy, who had burned 100 worlds, had been destroyed on Vega 9. Humanity stood in the ruins, victorious. The sky was black with smoke, the ground red with blood, but they had won. In orbit, the council fleets remained silent. None could speak. None could understand what they had seen. A small, young species, with simple weapons and fragile bodies, had defeated the greatest terror the galaxy had ever known. And they had done it not with technology, not with numbers, but with will. The human commander removed his helmet and looked at the stars, his face scarred and weary. His voice carried through the comms, strong and unshaken. "We fight because we must. We fight because no one else will. Remember this day, for it is not the end. It is only the beginning." The words echoed across the galaxy, carried on every signal, every channel. Survivors wept, counselors trembled, enemies cursed. The legend of humanity was sealed. They had come to rescue. They had turned into nightmares. And in their victory, the galaxy understood one truth: nothing would ever be the same again. The battle was over, but the echoes of war still burned across Vega 9. Smoke rose into the black sky, fires burned in the ruins, and silence fell heavy on the broken world. The humans stood among the wreckage, weapons lowered but not forgotten, their faces marked with blood, dirt, and exhaustion. They had won, but their victory was more than survival. It was a storm that shook the entire galaxy. Across the stars, news spread faster than light. Messages carried stories of what had happened on Vega 9. Entire fleets destroyed, an enemy once thought unstoppable reduced to ash, and at the center of it all was humanity. For those who had watched, the memory was burned into their minds. They had seen humans fight like no other species. They had seen humans do what no council army had ever done. And now, they asked themselves the question none dared speak aloud: what happens if the humans turn their strength against us? In the council chambers, voices rose in anger and fear. Some leaders demanded that humanity be honored, that statues be built, that they be given fleets and resources to continue the war. "They saved us all," one shouted. "Without them, the galaxy would already belong to the enemy." But others shouted louder, their voices filled with terror. "You call them saviors? I call them destroyers. Did you not see how they burned their own cities to win? Did you not see how they sacrificed their soldiers without hesitation? This is not mercy. This is not hope. This is madness, and if it turns against us, none will survive. Arguments raged day after day, but no decision could be reached. Humanity had proven they could not be controlled. They did not bow to council laws, did not wait for permission, did not fear sacrifice. They chose their own path, and that made them unpredictable. On distant planets, ordinary people whispered about humans in hushed tones. Traders told stories in spaceports, survivors wept as they remembered, soldiers from other species sat in silence when asked about Vega 9. Some called the humans demons. Others called them angels. But everyone agreed on one thing: they were different. On a mining colony in the Outer Rim, a group of workers gathered around a small holoscreen, watching shaky footage of human soldiers charging into enemy fire. One miner whispered, "They knew they would die, but they kept running." Why? Why would anyone do that? An old traveler sitting nearby shook his head. Because to them, death is not the end. To them, losing is worse than dying. In secret, enemy commanders reviewed their failures. Reports came in, one after another, telling the same story: humans could not be broken. Their numbers were small, their weapons crude compared to the council, but their will was unmatched. One enemy leader slammed his hand onto a table and growled, "We cannot fight them like we fight others. They are not prey. They are predators." Another asked, "Then how do we stop them?" No answer came. On Vega 9, survivors from dozens of species began to rebuild. They gathered food, buried their dead, and whispered thanks to the humans who had saved them. Some humans shared rations, offered medicine, carried wounded strangers on their backs. To the survivors, they were not monsters. They were saviors. Yet even as gratitude spread, so did fear. Council fleets watched as human warships left Vega 9, scarred but alive. They did not wait for orders, did not ask for support. They simply moved on, already preparing for the next battle. It was then the galaxy understood a terrible truth: humanity did not fight for recognition. They did not fight for power. They fought because it was who they were. And that meant they would never stop. In quiet chambers, council spies reported on human culture. They spoke of their history, their endless wars, their victories born from sacrifice. They spoke of a species that had survived extinction many times on their own world before they even reached the stars. "They are forged in conflict," one spy wrote. "War is not strange to them. War is their nature." The report spread among leaders, fueling more fear. One counselor whispered to another, "If they can defeat the enemy, they can defeat us. What then? Do we wait until they turn their fire on our worlds?" But another replied, "Or do we accept them, and hope they see us as allies instead of rivals?" While the council argued, humanity pushed forward. Their fleets expanded, their soldiers prepared, their commanders made no speeches of peace. They only spoke of survival, of victory, of never surrendering. To them, the war was not finished. To them, Vega 9 was only a battle, not the end. And the galaxy began to realize something terrifying: the enemy had awakened something far greater. In hidden corners of space, whispers grew louder. Some alien soldiers spoke of leaving their posts to join the humans. "They fight for real," one said. "They don't hide behind walls and politics. They fight to win." Others spoke of fear, swearing they would never let humans near their worlds. Fear and admiration grew side by side, a storm of rumors and stories that spread across every planet. Back on Vega 9, as ashes fell like snow, the human commander walked through the ruins with his soldiers. He did not smile, did not celebrate. His eyes were hard, his voice quiet. "This is not victory," he said. "This is survival. And survival is only the beginning." His words were recorded, carried across the stars. To some, they were a warning. To others, they were a promise. To all, they were unforgettable. In the enemy homeworlds, leaders sat in silence, realizing they had awakened the one force they could not control. They had faced countless species, crushed countless armies, but humanity was different. Humanity was the nightmare they could not erase. And in the council chambers, leaders finally understood that no matter what they decided, the galaxy had already changed. The humans had arrived. They had been called to rescue, but what came instead left the galaxy in shock. The question now was not whether humanity would survive. The question was whether the galaxy would survive humanity.